Hey everybody, I wore this t-shirt in a recent video and I got a ton of questions about what it means and
I have two reasons for making this stitch. One is to highlight the work of Dan McClellan, because it's just wonderful to get a daily dose of learning about the history of the Bible from a well-spoken biblical scholar. I just love his stuff and appreciate his work. Also, if you're into that stuff, let me highlight the book that is great to read, Gustav Meyrink's Golem. It was originally published in German, and it's not actually that much about the Golem. If you don't know the story of the Golem, it is a key piece of Jewish folklore, and the Golem is a being made out of clay that if you write those three magical letters that you saw on Dan's shirt, it comes to life, and it protects the Jewish people. And this story is especially out of Prague, and Meyrink spent 20 years of his life in Prague, though he wasn't actually Jewish. Some of his contemporaries had that wrong, but he was a lifelong resident of Prague. In fact, one of the reasons this Jewish occult folklore story was interesting to him was because at the age of 24, around 1900 or so, he actually was in his room with the gun to his head, ready to end his life. And just then there was a little scratching sound and a pamphlet got pushed under his door. And it was a pamphlet about mysticism and of various types, whether it's theosophy and Jewish mysticism, all of these different things. And the coincidence led him to want to live again. And he started exploring all of these mystical paths and became well studied in that. He was someone doing yoga for his entire life before yoga was widely known in the West. And so this was his very first book, and it was the one that cemented his reputation as still seen as his most accessible novel. That being said, this is not that accessible a novel, though it is a lot of fun. It's so weird. It is called perhaps the best German supernatural writing ever done, which is saying something. And that's ranked up there with Kafka, because you don't really know what's happening in this book. The narrator isn't actually the person telling the story about the Golem. It's someone who 30 years later finds his hat, and somehow that transfers his personality into him, and he starts having dreams of what happened to this person who was seeing the Golem, maybe, or maybe this person was slowly going insane, like some of his friends were telling him, and there was no Golem, or perhaps he was turning into the Golem, and you don't actually see the Golem that much in the book, though it is there. So that's what makes it so fantastic, is you never quite know what's going on, but you do enough that it's like an old Japanese style painting where there's enough there for the eye that you're getting something of the impression of it, but you're not exactly sure what. So this is a classic of world literature, I would say, and well worth your time, as well as Dan McClellan's videos.